So for our basting and backing week, or backing and basting, I guess, we are making a backing for our quilt, and we are going to baste our quilt top with our backing and batting, and that makes a quilt sandwich. We're going to be doing pin basting on the floor. I also have a really great tabletop basting video, which is awesome and a little bit easier on the knees and the back. And that one is basting a ghost party quilt that I did last fall for the ghost party sew along. So I'm going to link that in the blog post, but you can probably find it on my YouTube channel as well. You can also do spray basting, which is like a spray can of glue, and you would do it the same way that you do the pin basting. In this video, you will do the backing flat, and then instead of putting the batting on and pinning, you would spray the glue, then put the batting on, smooth it all out, spray another layer of glue, and then put the top on. I don't do that. I've only done that maybe for a mini quilt once or twice. I tried it once for a large quilt and I just didn't love it. But you can find lots of videos online and tutorials, so just Google spray basting a quilt and you should be able to find that no problem. Everything I do is pin basting. You could also thread baste, and that would be after you get everything laid out that you'll see in this video. Instead of doing the pins, you would take a needle and thread and you would do very big loose stitches through it, or tie every so often, and that would give you a basted quilt top or quilt sandwich, I guess, and you could quilt with it basted that way. So those are the ways that you can baste a quilt. Like I said, explore different options. The pin basting or the thread basting is probably the most economical. You just have to buy pins, and there's special quilting pins that I share while I'm basting. You'll see what those look like. I'll have links to stuff in my blog post as well. So that's what we're doing this week. We are prepping our quilt for quilting by making a quilt back and by basting together our back, batting, and quilt top. Now batting, I definitely recommend a low loft batting, which you will have seen if you read the blog post. I love a batting like Warm and Natural, and you can buy batting packaged in pre-cut sizes. So those sizes are typically more attuned to a bedding size. And I would just find a packaged batting size that's like 4 to 6 inches bigger in both directions than your quilt top. If at some point you really make a lot of quilts, investing in a roll of batting of your favorite type would be really great. That's what I do, but it's a big investment up front. You can typically get at least 20 quilts out of it though. So if you are planning to make a lot of quilts, that could be a great place to go. That's what I typically use, unless I'm looking for a specific type of batting like wool or bamboo, and then I will go and I'll buy those prepackaged to use on special projects. So check out the blog post. It has a lot of links and different things that you can do a little bit of research on, and then watch the 2 videos from this week. We have the backing video, which you need to do first because we have to have a backing, and we have the basting video. So we have our backing laid out on the floor. This backing is placed right side on the floor side and wrong side facing up. See, that's the right side, so that's facing down. What you want to do to achieve this is find a space in your house that's large enough to accommodate, with a little bit of wiggle room around the edges, because we need to maneuver to tape it to the floor. You can do this on wood or carpet. With either, check your tape and see what is going to work best and not stick to your carpet or stick to your floor and leave a residue. I find masking tape or painter's tape really works well. You just have to make sure it sticks to both the fabric and the flooring that you have. Then you're going to go down to each of the 4 corners and you're going to tape it. You want to pull this taut. keeping it as even as possible and pulling it a little bit taut, not stretching, but enough to make sure that you don't have any wrinkles. You can do this two ways. Do the corners first and then tape the middles, or tape the middles of each side first and work your way out to the corner. I really don't see a difference either way, as long as you are consistent and make sure everything is smooth. Now I'm going around to my sides, just continuing to pull it taut to pull out any wrinkles. And I don't tend to tape all the sides. I just tend to do in the middle and on the corners, but it could be beneficial if you're starting to do all of the edges, because we are going to be walking on this next. We have our backing taped down and it is taut. Next, we're adding our batting. So I have batting that I have a bolt of, and I rolled that batting off of the bolt and cut the width I wanted, which is slightly smaller than the width of our backing. Very similar though. And then I'm going to open it up because it is a 90-inch width. You probably bought a package batting, and so you just want to unfold it and smooth it out on top, making sure there's no wrinkles. And I like to do this from the middle. See how I said we're going to be walking on it next? Once you have it pretty much smoothed out, the batting will stick. And just making sure that all of these wrinkles are smoothed out is great. Like I said, you want your batting to be a little bit smaller than your backing, because I like to see the edges of my backing just to know where they're at. This one does go a little bit higher up past the top of my backing, but I'm okay with that. Smoothing out all those wrinkles just like that. And then we have our quilt top. If it's directional with your fabric, making sure it is also directional in the same direction as your backing. I laid my backing out with the top of my backing up here and the bottom of my backing down here. And so we're just going to kind of keep it centered again, pull it out smooth, making sure it's fully on top of the backing and on top of the batting, and pretty smooth. A good thing to notice is how far it is from the edge of your backing, because we don't want our backing to get a little off kilter. So what we do is we pin by starting in the center. I'm going to try to stay out of the line of vision, and I am going to put my needle down, feel through all layers, the top, the batting, and the backing, and then rock it back up and close that safety pin. So I pulled you in closer. I know we're a little askew. I wanted to show you that pin again and how it goes through. Now there's two different sizes of pins. Put it on the lighter fabric. I prefer the big ones, but the little ones do come in handy for stuff too. To pin, you want to rock that down, scooting it forward, getting through all your layers. And you can feel that more by, like, when I hit my wood floor, I know. If you have carpet, it might be slightly trickier, and you wouldn't want to do this on loop carpet. And then once you know you have all 3 layers, you want to start rocking it back up and then clip it closed. Now, if you have some resistance with your fabric and your needle coming back through, throw away that pin or sharpen it, because those pins do become dull, and we want them to be as sharp as possible so they don't make any holes in the fabric. So the little pins, you just have a little bit less space that you can work with, where the big pins you can have a little bit more space before you have to bring it up. And then you do need to clasp them closed and make sure the fabric is not bunched up in the middle of the pin. Now you can see here my pins, and like there's one right over here, and then over here we're kind of in a grid. It's a little bit bigger than 6 inches, and I like to baste about every 6 inches, working in a grid pattern. And as you're going, you're going to smooth out any of these wrinkles. What you want to do with a quilt like the new Star, as you're smoothing, is making sure these seam lines going horizontal and vertical stay level, stay straight, and don't get skewed. But I'm going to work my way out from the middle on all sides, smoothing as I go. I also just wanted to share that I did not go all the way to the edge. It's usually not necessary, and sometimes with borders they can end up a little bit wavy, so I pin just up to the border. And this is a little bit a better view of how many pins they are. Can you see all the pins in there? You can see I had to roll back my rug. So even though I do have a larger space, I still have to make room for basting because it is a large endeavor. So the last thing that we can do before we pull it all up and release the tape is you can trim down your batting. So what I'm going to do here is just trim my batting down to a similar size as my top, and it's just an inch or two bigger than the quilt top. Similar size to my backing, I guess, is what I meant to say. And you could leave the batting on because we are going to trim after we quilt. We'll trim all this excess batting and backing off, but it helps with quilting not to have all that excess as well. So you can do that there and on the other side if you need to. This side has a little bit excess as well, so I'm just going to trim off. I still want to leave a little bit of that batting on the edge of my quilt because if we have to smooth anything as we're quilting, we have a little bit extra batting in case we need to push anything down. It's the worst when your batting is just slightly smaller than your edge and you can't finish. All right, we have our batting trimmed down. So now what you can do is just go around and remove the tape and kind of pull up your quilt sandwich is what it's called. What I like to do after I have this done is flip it over. It's highly possible that you'll have some pins fall off if you dumped a little bit of pins on your top. The reason we flip it over is just to look for any large folds that might have happened in the backing. And if that happens, you can take out a few pins from the front around that fold and slowly work to smooth it out. I just wanted to give you a close-up too of it being basted. Of course, we've got some strings from sewing. You can just pull or clip those. Once you untape it, it won't be so taut looking, but that's okay as long as there's no big bubbles in it. And as we go into quilting, we will be smoothing as we quilt just to make sure that we don't feel any big folds. Something to think about when you're basting is your seams. Whichever way they're ironed is the way you want them to lay in the quilt when it's being basted and quilted. So if you get to any point where it's a little bit bulkier, make sure those seams are being tucked in the right direction as you're basting. And then a quick view at the back closer up. We do have this seam where it was on the bolt and I ironed it as best I could, but those often don't come out till the wash. And as long as we don't have any major folds, which would be something where it's folded over pretty significant, more like that, and it's pinned through or something. And then if that happens, you can just kind of unpin it from the back and then smooth and repin.